Hey, thanks for downloading, watching, and listening to the Lean Into Artcast, a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together, take a walk around a topic to do with visual storytelling, and talk about it from a practical aspect and a more abstract aspect. Think really hard about this stuff because we think hard about it so that you will too. My name is Jersey Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and a teaching artist. The other host is...
Hey, I am Rob Stenzinger. I am a game designer and a UX designer, user experience. And
we've got another artist in the room.
We do. This is awesome. So welcome special guest, Brandon Dayton.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
So, Brandon Dayton of thegreenmonk.com.
Yeah.
And we should say something about that. Something special happened at thegreenmonk.com.
That's the place to go now. I just finished. I've got this thread, 122-page story thread. I just wrapped up. Just posted this literally yesterday. So yeah, a whole story. There's a whole story there to read. You don't have to wait for any updates after this. You can get the whole tamale. One sitting.
One sitting. I'm looking forward to reading it all the way through. I mean, I've been, popping in and out as you've been posting updates, and it's just gorgeous. It's such a beautiful book. But can you give the rundown on why people should read Green Monk, besides the fact that you worked so hard on it and it's very beautiful? What's the movie trailer pitch for it?
Okay, movie trailer pitch. Maybe I'll just verbatim see if I can remember verbatim what's on the thing. It's basically the story of there's this mysterious boy that gets dropped off at a monastery when he's a baby, and it's about him growing up in this monastery, his friendship for the monks in the monastery, and about him eventually becoming a monk. But all along the way, he's having these like weird dreams, and he's got kind of this past and destiny that's kind of revealed to him as things go along. So it's a fantasy adventure. I kind of like to say that it's really a superhero origin story disguised as a like historical fiction. Fantastic historical fiction, I guess.
And you say like a mythical Russia.
It's a mythical Russia, yeah. So it takes place in medieval Russia.
And also you have a terrific YouTube channel that if people haven't subscribed to it yet, you should do so right now. It's youtube.com/Brandon Dayton. You've been posting a series of essays on there, these video essays. And I have to say, I wanted to take this opportunity to say this to you in public. You unlocked a huge mental stumbling block for me with this series of videos.
Really?
Yes. Like one that's been troubling me for a decade. As you know, both of you guys know, and people who listen to the show a lot know, that I am very hesitant to make strong statements for fear of telling people how to live.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to prescribe anything to anybody.
Yeah.
I like to think hard and I like to model activities, but I don't like to say this is the right answer, this is the right way to do it. And the way you approach your essays, you take a strong stance, but in this very clear way where it's not prescriptive, and it made me realize that there is a big difference between being prescriptive and being opinionated. And Brandon is modeling that for me right now. And it was literally like somebody opened a window. That's how it felt to me.
That's really funny because I feel like my approach, I feel like I'm trying to take like a note from you in that regard, because I've noticed that about you, that you avoid being prescriptive, So,
yeah. But you have no problem saying this is the way I think it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And you qualify, you do a really good job of saying, like, because you did an episode recently on how you make a living as an artist, like what's your model. And you point out, like, okay, well, here are the conditions that I am set with, or rather I begin with. Obviously, this is going to be unique to me.
Yeah.
But given that, here's what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just feel like, I can't fix anyone's problems for them, but definitely knowing how other people do it is always super helpful. So that's all I'm trying to do, is just be like, this is how I'm doing it. Not that it's going to help you at all. Maybe it will. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they're terrific. Everybody should, if you love Lean Into Art, you will love Brandon's channel. So do subscribe today. But we asked you back because in episode 195 we had you and Matthew Armstrong on to talk about this thing that you guys launched back in July called Sketchbook Summer, and Rob played along. I played along.
Mhm.
What was the big idea?
Thank you guys, by the way. That was awesome having you guys support on that.
Well,
Uh, what I mean, basically, you dropped an interesting art challenge, and it's like it's an opportunity to practice, and maybe it puts a highlight on something that it's easy to lose sight of the satisfaction of like filling up a sketchbook, right? And you made a whole challenge about it, and I'm kind of vulnerable to that, so I don't know if I should thank you or or be disgruntled. So
Yeah. Well, my apology.
you
Yeah,
put a
it's
big bag of art challenge heroin in front of Rob, is what you did.
yeah, I had kind of wanted to do some type of art challenge, and it just occurred to me I had had this challenge put to me years and years ago, when I was kind of starting out by a veteran artist. And I'd attempted it in the past, and it had been a really like great kind of period of growth for me, where you kind of the big thing for me was realizing the volume of work that was necessary to grow as an artist. I had been kind of just trickling, drawing here and there, and then I went to this San Diego Comic-Con one year and had this artist just say, like, you need to be drawing like way more. If you want to be doing this, you got to be drawing, like, just doing way more volume. So I just thought I wanted to try to make it a challenge, and I liked that it was going to be different than other challenge. It wasn't thematic. It was going to be just approached in a different way. And I hoped it was going to be helpful for people. And then it became this thing that I ended up, learning a ton from, and seeing what it was for other people. It's been kind of really fun. So,
And for those who haven't actually heard of Sketchbook Summer yet, maybe you missed episode 195, or maybe you're just new to the show. The big idea was that, in a nutshell, it was fill a sketchbook over the month of July 2017, right? And share what you want out of it. But
yeah.
you were careful to put some. There were some interesting limitations that you and Matthew introduced in terms of the scope of the project and setting expectations of the project, and I want to dig into that in a minute when we go on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it'd be nice to have you back. Well, Rob and I both said, like, we should have Brandon back for like a sort of a retrospective. One of the themes of the Lean Art series is reflection. So you just went through an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who participated went through an experience. Okay, let's reflect on what happened in that experience. And you, as an instigator of this thing, and as people who participated in this thing,
Okay.
what happens when you go through an art challenge that's 30 days, where there's an explicit call to share, but that's where it ends. It doesn't say, like, every day you must share, and this is the way you share, and this is the stuff you should have when you share, right? Like, none of that was explicit. Only the sketch for 30 days, or rather, fill a sketchbook in 30 days and share some of the results if you feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very different than some of the other things that we've participated in the past. So,
Do other things say that you have to share something every single day?
sure, Inktober's that, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Maybe we should have said that you have to share every day.
Well, let's dig into that in a second. Ready to go to on the ground, guys?
Yeah.
let's go there.
Okay. Get intense for the on the ground part. This is me laying some audio heroin in front of Rob. So he's going to be plenty pumped up to talk about, like, okay, on the ground is where we talk about, like, the practical aspects of the thing. Like, what does it look like? What if you were to, like, walk in a room of people participating in this activity, what would it be like? And what kind of things would you go through while you're doing the thing? So, where do we want to start? Something you said early on, we talked about this in episode 195, that really stuck with me, was you said that your sketchbook is where you should be failing. Because if you're failing, that means that you're trying something that's beyond your skill set, and that's how you level up, right? And when that, pin clicked, and I was like, of course that's what your sketchbook should be. My next thought was, well, then why would you share that? That's not going to get all the likes on Instagram.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It's a tough thing to navigate because the the challenge by its nature forces you into that corner where you can't sit and make something perfect. And for me, that was a little bit to my detriment because some of this stuff, it was like, I'm just drawing a lot of garbage here, you know? But I mean, that is good in the sense that it forces you to approach growing as an artist in a way where you have to kind of make an attempt and move on, you know, which I think can be an effective way to approach your growth. So yeah, that was kind of a difficult thing because most of what I've been spending my time posting lately is like I'll draw something and then I'll nicely ink it and then I'll post it on Instagram. And this was more of like, okay, we got to do quicker, funner, crazier stuff. And some of it was like just sketches that were rough that maybe weren't as finished as I would do in the past, but some of it was just like kind of weird, funner, more creative stuff that I think had a really interesting visual, you know, aspect to it. So that stuff was kind of fun to post too, where you're just like, you know, scribbling with markers and then trying to make something out of it. And, you know.
Yeah, actually I should scroll back up. I'm looking at the Sketchbook Summer hashtag on Instagram right now. And here's one of the pieces that you posted where you and the kids teamed up.
Yeah, that's what my daughter's princess markers. Most of that is me is just me like I'll scribble just to like block out a shape, and then I can kind of build that into something on top. Yeah, so it was a big learning experience as far as, you know, kind of going through it and just looking at your art and your sketching in a totally different way. So yeah.
So, but I want to get this idea of sharing a little bit because this was on my mind whenever I was sketching in my sketchbook was, is it oh man, it put a light on what I was doing and made me so much more aware of what I was doing, and not to the sense of like, oh, I got to make it perfect, but even when I was failing, when I was doing pages where I was like, nope, this is no good. The next question like popped in my mind, like, is it no good in a way that I can share, or is it just no good, right? Like suddenly I began to think like a lot more meta information about what was happening in my sketchbook while I was doing it. I'm wondering, and I want to hear from both you guys on this. Did you experience that at all while you were doing the challenge, Rob?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, there were some times where I'm just like, I'm not going to share this. This is garbage. I definitely did some curation of the stuff that I shared, you know, like for sure.
So, but how much curation? So I'm really curious, for both of you, like what % did you draw versus post as a ratio?
If it were me, I would say 4%.
Yeah, maybe 4 to 10%. I mean, I'd be somewhere. I think there might have been some benefit to posting the crap just to make a point, just to be like, hey, this is the process. And there was some stuff. One of the things I liked about it is as I got into a mode of doing things where it was like sketch from reference, a certain subject matter, then sketch on my own based on what I learned from that reference. And then eventually I would sketch something that I liked. And it might've been kind of cool to show. I found myself going through that process quite a bit where it's like trying to figure stuff out. Here's the crap, kind of getting closer and then kind of being like, okay, I'm kind of figuring it out now, you know?
Yeah. I also found that, I was suddenly liberated to free pieces of things that are in my sketchbooks that are usually only for my benefit. Like for instance, I just pulled up the example. I was working on this bison character for a Boulder and Fleet story.
Oh yeah, I love this thing.
Yeah, and something I do a lot is like when I'm working out the shapes, I'll actually like turn them into like a 3D model kind of thing to like figure out, okay, how are these shapes all interacting with one another? How does the physics of this thing work? Would I be able to turn this into a physical model, or am I faking something here, right? And so this kind of proofing is something I usually just do for my own benefit, but I never think about letting anybody else see it. This is one of those moments where I was like, okay, this isn't done, but is this like part of that failing thing I can share, right?
Yeah, I love that exercise. That's awesome.
Is that something that they teach you in art school? Because I didn't finish art school.
I didn't go to art school, so I don't know.
Okay. Awesome. None of us did.
Nope. Yeah, same
But
here.
I like
So
your approval of it. It makes me feel better, Brandon.
Nothing to see here, folks. Bunch of non-art school nobodies.
well, yeah, and don't forget being super authoritative. Or wait, which one are we? Uh,
What
so
about you, Rob?
it's funny. Like I shared like the quality of doodles I put together are very rarely as in depth as I don't know, the things that you guys are describing or that I commonly see in your feeds. Like I will share things that are rough, uh, really conceptual, right? Where this something could emerge through lots of iteration from this one drawing. I could end up finding a composition and a way to express the subject in a far more rendered and detailed and thought out logical way, like you're showing your sort of 3D blocking exercise that you often don't share, Jersey. But like that, I mean, that's just so farther beyond, right? Where I was just happy to get something roughly communicated. Oftentimes capture it quick with like a red pencil, then pen, maybe do some shading or do that shading exercise that Brandon explored, where it was like a marker scribble and then find form in this, right? So inherently for me, it's a lot more about just ideas and um, seeing where they go and like, does this idea communicate? And the performance of it probably isn't going to be much more than pretty rough, but um but I've done that long enough where I did a project in 2015 called Unblocking, where I just wanted to get in the habit of sharing frequently and doing rapid cycle creative process, right? Where get an idea out. Doesn't matter. What is it? It could be just the literal thing. There's a cup on a table. I draw it and I post it. And maybe I draw it pretty abstract. But either way, I met the terms of my own challenge. So yeah, for every day in 2015, I did that. Many of those days were the kinds of drawings that I ended up doing for Sketchbook Summer. So I don't know if it was like a crutch or something, but for me, in a way, I was revisiting like 2015 and saying like,
Yeah, it sounds like you,
I'm just
you had like
gonna
a
put
already
some
built,
stuff out.
yeah, a scaffolding that you just like sort of like wheel into the room and be like, here we go.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to how it felt for me as well. I mean, if I'm understanding you right, this kind of feeling of um it wasn't the most finished best stuff I've ever done, but I think it was far more productive as far as like inventiveness and like generating kind of new things and doing different things. It was much more unique. The stuff I produced here was much more unique, inventive, and different than, any other sketchbook I've done recently.
Hmm.
So I definitely felt like this was more about this kind of opening up ideas, creating new things than it was about like, let's make something perfect looking.
Can I ask where your sketching happened? Did it happen in like a set place where it's like, okay, now it's time to do my sketchbook summer stuff, or did it find it get distributed over more, having it being like, okay, this is the month of using the sketchbook, did that sketchbooking time get distributed over a wider period?
Man, I was literally like, I gave the advice, bring your sketchbook everywhere. And I had to do that to keep up. Like I was just at night, I was just sitting at the couch, just like putting in the hours on the weekends, going to the park with the family, just like, and I was like, I got to draw. This is what I'm doing for this month. I'm just drawing every free moment.
Yeah.
Um, and it was definitely like that weighed heavy on me, especially because I was like, I'm like the front man of this thing. I need to do this, which is a good way to stay committed on the project.
Sure. Yeah. And if
Sure.
you're all about personal responsibility too, that also kind of adds some extra zest and zeal to that checking in thing, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't the best thing to take on if I wanted to like finish my comic. So the reason that my comic is coming out at the end of August has a ton to do with Sketchbook Summer. I mean, there were some days where I'm just like, you know what, today, rather than working, I just need to do a lot of sketching today to catch up.
Uh, that's great.
Yeah,
What about you? What about you, Rob?
I feel that. So as far as where it would happen,
Yeah, like where and when was it happening?
mm, hmm, let's see. I would do. Sometimes I try to. It's almost like a juggling trick where if you're juggling three balls and you want to have a little more time, you want to scratch your nose, you can chuck a ball high, right? And that gives you time to like scratch your nose or whatever.
Right.
And so I would essentially, chuck the sketching ball high by doing like quick scribbly ideas in the red pencil and just go ahead a bunch of pages.
Oh, I see.
So I could be in a mode where I couldn't lay an accurate line while I'm on the bus. Yet I could get ideas down, no biggie, low risk with the red pencil. And so some of it would be in the morning part of my commute, and then some of it would be, I guess evenings is typically where I'd finish up. So that's, and the where would, typically my office and stuff, but it depends. I mean, I had my sketchbook with me quite a bit. So there were, let's see, swim lessons where I'd be sitting on the sideline with my sketchbook. There would be just wherever. So, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about, how a challenge like this emphasizes how ridiculously portable drawing can be. So
Yeah.
that's a nice thing to be reminded of. And I definitely would dabble here and there, but the bulk of my productivity was, in the evening.
So, observation I have about this particular challenge was, and I was also reminded of some of your earlier videos where you talked about drawing what you see and how that relates to memory and how it can actually affect memory. Both my wife Ann and I, we took the challenge to heart to say, like, no, this is a good reminder that wherever we are, our sketchbook should always be honest, which mine always is. We just did an episode, Rob, a few back called Everyday Carry, when I showed like my rig, like this is the bag I carry with me everywhere. Even if I'm just going to the grocery store to get milk, this comes with me because you never know. But it was a wonderful reminder to me that this thing's always on me. I should really be looking for moments where this could be a good time to sketch. And so Ann and I found that, like, oh, we're downtown. We're in downtown Ann Arbor. We're just like running an errand after work, like we're going to get gelato or something, right? And it's like, you know what? While we sit here and eat our gelato, let's break out our sketchbooks and start sketching, right? We went to a park. Well, and I have like the example right here where we were at the Hidden Lake Gardens in Michigan just one weekend, and it's like, well, we got our sketchbooks here. Why don't we sit down for a minute? It's a nice day, and we'll just like sketch some things that we see. And the great thing about this particular challenge, where it's like, yeah, you're invited to share, but you don't have to share everything. You don't have to do it every day. Was when I sat down to draw this rock, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to really. I don't really do much drawing of what I see. So when I sat down to do this, I was like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but it didn't matter because, like, if it turned out great, share it. If it doesn't, move on. Keep pressing forward, because this is about it's about volume, which I want to get to in the second half of the show. Right? What are you laughing at, Rob?
It's just this. It's so funny. I need to produce more art more frequently to have the volume to say that, because if I didn't share the rough stuff, I wouldn't have shared anything that whole month.
I did that too, though. I mean, like, here's a good example of one where it's like, okay, I found where I failed, and I was like, this is a good indication of failing and then iterating and getting somewhere with it, right? You look at that top right one page. That top right one is like, okay, that's not even anything, right? And then
there's something. Oh, I think there's something there in all the other. There's something charming about all those, but
you're very kind. But
you're gonna be harder on yourself, I'm sure.
Well, we all are. I mean, or a lot of us are. But anyway, yeah. Like, this was an example where I was like, okay, I really hated the bison's outfit. I was like, that is not interesting or creative. The bison itself is interesting, but like, what? It's wearing a jacket. Come on, you can do better than that, Jersey. So, anyway, but yeah, that was the thing that I like physically doing it. I've noticed that it happened in more places, and it happened because it was on my mind all the time. It created like these wonderful spontaneous moments of creativity where we're not going to this place to sketch. We're here for something else. But while we're here,
Yeah, I totally had that exact same experience where I'm like, we're planning on doing this. I need to bring my sketchbook. And it was just like, man, it broke me out of my comfort zone so much, which was awesome. And I was shocked that despite the stress of like trying to like finish this thing, how many moments I found myself like at a coffee shop or at the park or family gathering, just like chilling out, sketching, was like, wow, this is like really enjoyable. I'm just like really enjoying just like chilling out and just like sketching. And which I just, man, because working professionally, I've just gotten to the point where I've drawn so much where I get home and I'm just like, I don't want to draw anymore. I've been drawing all day. I'm sick of drawing, you know? And it was kind of cool to force myself to be in a place again where I'm just like enjoying sketching and having fun with it. And it's not for anything. That was really cool.
I need to capture that for follow up in the second half of the show because yeah, like this whole idea of reacquainting oneself with the joyful parts of working.
That was the best part of it for me.
Yeah, yeah, that is a wonderful side effect.
Yeah, we have to follow up on that one. But
yeah.
So, all right, and I think that may be a handy way to awkwardly inch backing ever toward an ad spot, right?
That was like Bob Newhart level. That was like,
oh, I didn't see you there. Hey, ad spot. Come on.
That stammer was just perfect, pitch perfect, Bob Newhart. All right, yes, it's time for us to take a quick break and thank some people who make this show possible. It takes time and a lot of effort to put this material together week after week. You know, check in every Thursday night with a new idea to chew on. And finding friends to spend time with us. So we want to take a minute and a half to thank some people, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about reacquainting one with the joy of doing this stuff, of drawing, and also a little bit about how we change when we start thinking about drawing in terms of volume instead of quality of art. How does that change you as an artist? We'll talk about that in a minute and 30 seconds. But before we do that, I want to thank some people who make the show possible. Those people happen to be the folks who support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/leanintoart. And what is Patreon? It's a way for you to vote for the show. It's a way for you to give us a vote of support. It could be as little as $1 a month. It could be whatever you can afford or whatever you think we deserve. But we want to take this opportunity to thank 5 people who have been doing just that today. Miriam, thank you so much for believing in us and what we do. Esprit Devora, you can find on Twitter at WeAreLATech. Angela Mitchell, thank you, Angela. You can find Angela's stuff at Angie Makes Stuff on Twitter. Shawnee Redfern, thank you so much, Shawnee, for your continued support of the show. We've been doing this for a while now, and we appreciate it. You can find Shawnee's stuff at Shawnee Redfern, ShauniDFearn. We'll link to these in the show notes as well. And finally, Kelly Ishikawa. You can find Kelly's work at Kelly of Ishikawa on Twitter. And if you want to check out patreon.com/leanintoart, you'll find all the shows we produce there, as well as the extra lean shows, which are only for Patreon supporters. And it becomes a private thread where you can talk about whatever you want with us in a safe place where only people who believe in us and what we do hang out. So thanks to everybody who has been supporting us there. Patreon.com/leanintoart. And yeah, it means a lot to us.
It really does. Thank you.
All right. I need some bridge music to get to the 10,000 feet up section. How about... Oh, I should have prepared something special for Brandon. But...
Come on.
I know. How about... A little joyful. A little intense in the first thing.
Could not have chosen anything better.
Really?
That's great, yeah.
Pee Wee Herman's Breakfast Machine?
That's fantastic.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes.
When I find out my young students haven't watched that, that's like the one time I freak out. I'm like, what? you call yourself a cartoonist? Get home right now. Watch that movie.
Yeah.
All right. 10,000 feet up. So we want to talk about this volume thing. How does it change when you suddenly have to produce that much material that quickly?
Yeah, I think it's a really awesome way to approach things. It's been a long time since I've taken this approach, and what I do as an artist has changed a lot since then. So it felt very, very new to me doing this thing again. And We've touched on it a little bit. I mean, this just the idea that for me, it was more about like inventing and finding new things than having finished stuff. But I also found that it was a great opportunity for iteration, that I could be like, just like with your buffalo, that I could be like, one thing I was doing a lot of for whatever reason was chimpanzees. So I was drawing a chimpanzee from reference. And then I would be like, okay, I'm going to draw a couple chimpanzees just from my imagination. And then I would draw something that vaguely felt chimpanzee-ish. So yeah, that was really cool. Kind of figuring out that iterative process and going through that was kind of interesting. But yeah, it forces you to focus on, what's the way to, it forces you to focus on speed, you know, rather, and which it's great to focus on detail and making things really pretty and stuff. But I think there is something to be said for, you know, learning how to do things quickly, how to be able to like figure out a pose quickly, how to work through ideas quickly. So
Reminds me of an old quote that I used to use a lot, and I think it was attributed to Dave Sim, where he said, "First you get good, then you get fast, then you get good and fast."
yeah, I think I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I think that what's implicit in that is that like when you get good, then you have to learn how to be fast. But when you're fast, you're to like drop pieces like of the stuff that you're trying to execute there.
Yeah.
And then through that experience, you learn what you don't need by looking at what fell off when you're trying to get the thing delivered, right? After doing it a few times, you see exactly what doesn't need to be there. And I see like I this is all conjecture, but like when I look at artists of old art by old masters of comics like Alex Toth, where he's like doing one little squiggle, you get up close and it's just a little squiggle, but you back away and that's a nose, that's a finished nose, and that's all he needed to get it across, right?
Part of what I like about it too is getting into this mode of I don't know. Did you see the video I did about like punk rock, making art like punk rock? Like
I watched it, but remind me of what
the basic idea is that there's this idea of making art in this way where you're just doing things quickly and passionately, and that the kind of the passion and the heart a lot of times can make up for the like perfection of the thing that you're doing, you know. And so I felt like there was a lot of moments like that as well, where it's just like you're just having fun, and it's just like the fun of, you can feel the fun of the thing even if it isn't perfect. So I wish I could think of like a really good example of that right now, but
well, I think of when raise your hand if you ever been in a situation where your thumbnail is like 10 times more lively and energetic than your final drawing, right?
Yeah. Or do you draw something that's really just horrible and stupid, but it's so friggin' hilarious,
right?
You know, that you can't stand it, you know?
Yeah, that's a good one. And that one happens in my classrooms a lot. And I have the wonderful privilege of having an audience to like measure whether or not it's any good, even though it's like a crude, you know, like dry erase marker drawing. But like, yeah, something I use in my classrooms all the time now is born out of that, where I explore how shapes work, and I draw like a circle and I draw a triangle, and like which one's the friendly shape, and like, well, circle, well, why? Well, nobody knows. We don't know yet, but we just know that it's true. I'm like, okay, well, circles make us think of babies, and then I like one day out of the blue, I'm like, behold the terror of triangle baby, and I drew the baby made out of triangles, you know. And it got such a reaction that's like, well, that's getting used in every class from now on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a great drawing.
Yeah, one of the days we were doing Sketchbook Summer, I was sitting down with my daughter and her cousins, and we were just doing like a little drawing lesson that day. And just at the end of the drawing lesson, we're all just like drawing random stuff, and we just all started drawing just like Harry Potter characters, but then we just started drawing like stupid versions of Harry Potter characters, you know, and their arms have like 4 joints, you know, and their eyes are on the side of their face. But that's what makes it like 100 times better. And we were all just like dying laughing, drawing these Harry Potter characters like farting and being idiots and, you know, all this stuff. And then we're doing things, the girls would like draw something and I would ink it, or I'd draw something and they would ink it. And that was a lot of fun. And it was just like having fun. And we were just focused on the experience of it. And it wasn't about, I got to make a perfect thing to put onto Instagram. It was just, you know, enjoying the process of making art.
So many interesting tensions there with Oh gosh, you ever read a magazine called Dwell?
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. So
I've
it's an interesting visual reference, right? Where it's beautiful architecture and well laid out spaces that probably don't look like that all the time, right?
mhm.
Someone didn't just have a bowl of cereal in a picture in Dwell, right? There isn't a table littered with drawings and whatever. It's pristine and often beautiful and interesting, but yet so clean. And um, to me, it's like a lot. Isn't that a lot of times what we, I don't know. We've talked about this before, but when you post to you make something, you post it to Instagram, the job's different. Like even like, hi, I'm going to put a piece of content into your feed, and it's going to show up there, and because I expect it will entertain you, and it stands on its own, and it's somehow this useful or delightful thing. But like, if inherently, if you're doing something that this is rough and this isn't fully thought out. I just did this. I exist. This drawing exists. I made something. And is there any meeting? I don't know, but hi Instagram, right? Like somehow that doesn't seem as natural.
There's
Yeah.
yeah. There seems to be like a little bit more humanity there. I think a lot of times there's what's the word? There's kind of a contrivance to when we are trying to put stuff on social media. There's this thought of like image crafting and how this is going to fit with like how we are perceived online. That's what makes me think about when I'm looking at Dwell. It's like this perfectly, choreographed setup thing. And there's something nice about just being like, this is just a human thing. This is just a person, doing things that people do. And we're just expressing it with art, but there's something kind of honest and
But I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds natural, right? Okay, if you're an artist, that sounds within your, likely personality, right? But
yeah,
yet it feels like you're using that same feed that you spread spread awareness of your skill and your caring of your craft and everything. And all of a sudden you're putting something else in there that sort of could appear to go against it, right?
yeah.
Like, is that part of the tension? And am I making any sense with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So like I recently had my first experience in a restaurant where I saw somebody at another table like do the thing where they're taking a picture of their food and they're like being really careful about it, where they like take a picture and like nope, 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 and then they change the light and they like hold up the menu, I don't reflect the light, and like take another picture and like my initial reaction was like, oh, how droll, how quaint that you're doing
I
that.
would never.
I would never. I am so unsoiled with that kind of vanity. But then I thought, well, wait a second. How many times have I been doing a drawing like, this is the panel. This is the panel. Okay, not oh, I got to recrop it. I got to recrop it. There we go. All right, now it's
Yep.
ready, right? Um and yeah, because part of it is I'm leaving a breadcrumb trail of expertise for people to follow to say like, this is why you should hire me. We've talked about this before on the show, and I'm certainly thinking about that when I'm sharing what I'm sharing, but um that process stuff, sure, it triggers imposter syndrome a little tiny bit, right? Now they're gonna know that I'm really not good at this. And like even when I did show that like 3D blocking bison thing and Brandon reacted so positively to it, I'm like, is it good? I don't know. Do you know? Um, yeah. So like that's certainly a tension with this kind of art challenge that I don't think is quite as baked into other ones that I've done.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. I mean, that's not something I think I really realized, that I think especially for people that are newer to the game, that there can be a certain amount of vulnerability in participating in a challenge like this, which fortunately though, it seems like a lot of the people that participated were newer artists, so hopefully people weren't too intimidated by it. I figured people would be more intimidated just about the volume. I think then there were some people that dropped out, which is understandable, but that is a really interesting thought of just like kind of that tension of wanting to show yourself as best as possible online. But then be part of the and that's maybe something we can do a better job of modeling in subsequent years. Probably the best thing I did along those lines, which was kind of unintentional, was halfway through the challenge, I sat down and did a bunch of gesture drawings. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just did 6 pages in half an hour. This is the best thing ever. And so I posted a video where I was like, I could have been if people would have really known how like big of a breakthrough that was for me and how much I was just like, oh boy, I'm getting behind. And then I figured out gesture drawing and I shared that video. I'm like, guys, you can get through this thing if you just do lots of gesture drawing.
Well, let's talk about that too for a second, because another thing that happened to you, and you talked about this in one of your videos, is you injured yourself doing this thing.
Oh yeah, I have not had hand pain in years and years, and I started getting elbow, knuckle, hand pain. It's a lot of drawing. And so I had to use, I was like drawing with this big Crayola for several days because so I wouldn't have to like press so hard. And it's still kind of like.
Wasn't that also what led to doing some of those gesture drawings too, was to keep it looser, or no?
No, that was all just to make up like mileage just to catch up. Those they are kind of easier. They are easier on the hand too. I mean, I think it gets harder on your hand when you're really trying to like get those details and get all that control in. So the great thing I figured out with the gesture drawing was first off, doing a challenge like this, it's really great if you have a lot of reference to work with, rather than trying to like think up everything every single day. The prompts are super important. Having something that you can just go in and look at and draw is super important. And then it's like, once you can have that as an anchor, if you can start your day with that with some reference, then I can build off of that for the rest of the day. So I would do these gesture drawings. Then I would go back and be like, okay, I'm going to do a sketch based off this gesture or this gesture. And I would do more work on it and tighten it up. So
can we talk about line of action?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
line-of-action.com. Because I did not know about this site until you mentioned it during Sketchbook Summer. And this thing is cool as heck. Could you describe it?
Yeah, so Line of Action is just a website that will set up kind of a figure drawing session for you. And there's others. There's another one I started using more at the end of the session because it allowed you to do 45-second gestures, which I started finding was like really perfect for me. But yeah, you can set up a figure drawing session. It has a bunch of photos, has photos of animals, of models, you know, male and female, clothed and nude. And then you can also set up the time for each drawing to be as long as you want. So they have like a class setting where it starts with gesture drawings and then gets longer and longer as it proceeds. But I would usually just set it just to do just 30-second poses, and then do a couple sessions of 1 and 2 minute poses. And that's what I would do almost every single day. But there's several other sites like this. So if you just look up figure drawing, there's you can find several sites that all have different collections of images and different options, but they're great resources. And someone else, I wish I could remember the name of it. Someone posted, I should look this up right now. There's a YouTube channel that is just poses for figure drawing. So it's really cool. It's just, you just go see videos and they have it's video of a live figure drawing session where they have, it's not live, but it's like a recorded session where they just have a model doing several different poses. And yeah, I wish I should have come prepared with that. I wish I can remember what it's called. I don't.
Well, I mean, some of the leaners may let us know in the chat or after the fact, and we can include it in the show notes as well. Or if you look it up later and you can give it to us, we'll put it in the show notes. But I just wasn't aware that there was things like this where it's like, we just pulled up a drawing of a hand and it was like a 45-second countdown. So like, and then that drawing's going to go, or that picture's going to go away. And so you got to sketch it out really fast and then move on, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
I wish I would have used this during Sketchbook Summer, not in retrospect. That would have been really handy. Because like you said, I think like one of the harder parts for me too was, what I'm going to draw today, right? What I'm going to sketch.
Yeah, it was a great way to get started. Just give you lots of ideas. And I think at the end of it on this one, or maybe it was another site, when you are done, you press stop. It'll just give you a big like screen with all of the images you sketched. And so I could go back in and be like, oh yeah, I want to spend more time with this one. And I'd grab an image and play around with it a little bit more.
Neat.
Yeah, it sounds really handy.
Yeah.
I ended up using my photo, timeline, just things I snapped over, recent weeks and months, where I would just mine it for ideas. And inherently there's I really wish I had like a database of all my sketchbooks, because I think there are recurring themes, right? You know, there's
Yeah.
giants, there's guitars, there's sandwiches, and like I've got a few things. And it's just kind of funny looking through my sketchbook summer, where I'm like, okay, if I have to dig into my um reflexive approach to like what should I draw, it's going to be one of those things.
Did you find yourself going back and referencing old sketches for ideas for this
uh
time around?
Not really. I think I did sometimes by searching my hard drive, and like it would, I would incidentally find something and say and have an idea of where to go. Like I thought, oh, okay, I'm gonna draw anthropomorphic fruit. Okay.
Yeah.
And
What
yeah.
one of the things kind of similar to that along those lines for me was when I was trying to just like getting low on ideas, I would just have drawn something on one page, and then the opposite side of the page, I would just use the outline of what I could see through the other side to start drawing something too.
Oh, that's
So like
awesome.
I don't figure out a pose, I can just draw over the top of this and draw something new. That one helped too.
Now that's an interesting idea, because something I ran into, and we didn't talk in the on the ground section about what kinds of sketchbooks we all use, because I think Rob and I used different ones than what was recommended on the Sketchbook Summer website. I used a 5.5 by 8.5 moleskin, and those moleskins, the paper is lovely, but it's very thin. So like when I used markers or anything on one page, it's like, well, now the other side is unusable. But had I thought about it, yeah, that would have been cool to like actually make use out of what happened on the other side to make something.
And a couple of times I did that as well, where I did some stuff with Prismacolor, and then I tried to make they would bleed, and I'd try to make something out of it on the other side, which is actually it was helpful. So like, oh, I have something to start with. There's something there that I can use for this next thing.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of, okay, man, you're just bridging me to the final point that I want to dig at before we get to final thoughts. That having a starting point, right? It's like something we've talked about for years. Is like if you walk up to somebody in the street and say, "Tell me a story," they're gonna go, But if you say, "Tell me a story about your 8th birthday party," they're gonna have a place to go, right? Even if it's not a great story, at least it's pushed them. It's given them an incentive to start exploring the idea. So you did prompts this year. I'm wondering, did that help you? Did it not help you? What was your experience in engaging with prompts, and how might you do it differently next time?
Well, most of my energies involved with prompts was thinking up prompts and posting them on Facebook. And Matthew did a fantastic thing where he started getting in the habit of just like doing a big image dump for the prompts, which I think is really a fantastic thing, because you can just start referencing those directly for the stuff. But I honestly did not do a very good job of sticking with the prompts. And it wasn't until the end that I started realizing, like, wait, the prompts are like super important. That's one of the key ways of making this easier is starting with, like you said, having a starting place and just being like, okay, I'm just going to start by drawing something I see right in front of me, So I really want to double down on that next year and just be like, here are these images. Start by drawing something from this image dump, and
Oh, the image, the visual version of it is such a great idea. I didn't see those on the Facebook feed. Oh,
yeah.
Rob, we got to do that for
Art
Sound Off. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Facebook was kind of tricky to use. It's not really built for something like this, because I just don't think the prompts just didn't show up. People didn't see the prompts, like I think if we are going to do this again, what I really want to do is just set up like an email list to just where we can send it to them, or, we'll also do it on, I think Instagram and email is going to be more of our home base next time, just because people are going to see the stuff. Facebook just has its weirdo algorithm where it's like, we're going to hide everything unless you pay us type thing, so,
I think you described it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, a email list sounds like a really good idea.
And plus then you get people to sign up for an email list, which is always a good thing.
Yes, that is information that you are in control of, rather than handing it over to a third party to manage for you.
Yeah, and as a mechanism, it's everyone's in control of it, right? So if someone wants to leave after they joined, that works, and
That's
it's
true.
proven, simple, straightforward,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then also sharing something timely. That I think that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
something we should consider, Jersey. Obviously, clearly there's. It sounds like you have a bit of an eye, which as I do, looking at someone we know who's facilitated their own art challenge and thinking like, well, what could we apply and learn
Oh yeah. Oh, don't
to?
think for a second I wasn't
Oh
exploring
yeah.
this topic very selfishly.
Oh yeah. Hey, if you guys want to go deeper offline too and get all of my like postmortem thoughts, I'd be happy to, hear what you guys are doing and kind of give you my 2 bits. So
Very
Cool.
cool.
All right.
Appreciate that. But yeah, do we have anything for final thought? I mean, we're getting close to the end here.
Something
So.
that I thought would be a tempting final thought. Let's see if this flies. It was a comment that sounded so innocent that I wanted to revisit. It was the uh, this art somehow it's easy, approachable, feels less risky because it's not for anything. And I thought, is it really not for anything? Because I wonder what emerged from it.
Okay,
So we
that's
have this
great.
assumption, hey, it's not for anything. This is low risk, but then maybe is that true? And if not, what emerged?
All right, everybody, place your bets on where our backpacks full of bias are going to place us in this spectrum as we explore this idea of is art ever not for anything? Um, but before we do that, we got to thank a few more people who make the show possible. And just for about a minute and a half or 2 minutes, we're going to talk about the stuff that they do. And those people happen to be us, me and Rob. Hey, we make comics. And I make a comic called Boulder and Fleet. You can find it at boulderandfleet.com. What is it? It's a story about two best friends who travel the world and help people in trouble. And those two best friends happen to be a bear and a bird. The bear happens to be a very ambitious, intense little bird. And the bear happens to be a very, very powerful bear who absolutely abhors the idea of hurting anybody. So you can see the tension that would come out of that when you put those characters in a situation where they're going to find adventures as adventures for hire. And there's even a Patreon you can follow at patreon.com/Jersey if you want to support the comic and see some behind the scenes stuff. Rob, you make a game.
I do, and it's called This Panda Needs You. And well, I know you're busy. You probably have a full schedule or whatnot. And why would this panda be asking for your time? Well, it's all about having a mellow, playful experience, doing some pattern matching and dealing with the physics of block stacking. And well, the panda comes along because the panda lives in a place where there are blocks stacked in fancy arrangements that start from easy to more difficult. And every time the panda encounters a stack of blocks, a cloud comes along and boom, knocks them all down. So it's up to you. You got to help this panda put things right. And the panda celebrates as you go along. There's mellow, playful music, wind chimes, and delightful things that you'll encounter as you help this panda solve more than 50 levels of these kinds of things. And you can learn more about it at this-panda.com, or of course search the iTunes App Store because it's available for iPhone and iPad. And just look for This Panda Needs You.
And if you do get the game, a great thing you could do is give it a star review in the iTunes App Store. That helps more people find it. So, but let's suppose that you're here not because you are interested in the stuff that we make. You're interested in the way we think about stuff. Fair enough. This show is another product that we make, and we make more products like that at leanintoart.com/workshops, where you can download video workshops at a price of your choosing, even zero. And you can find comic book workshops by me there. You can find UI, video game workshops, and comic strip workshops from Rob there at leanintoart.com/workshops. And let's say you've done all that. You've interacted with our workshop store. You've interacted with my comic. You've downloaded Rob's game. A great thing you could do that's absolutely costs you nothing except a few seconds of your time is if you're watching the video on YouTube, give it the thumbs up. That helps more people find the show. And if you listen to the show on a podcatcher like iTunes, giving the show a star review helps more people find the show. And we thank everybody who has done all those things. It means a lot to us that you care about what we do and the stuff that we make.
Thank you.
All right. Final thoughts.
Final thought. The innocent comment. Hey, it's not for anything. That makes this low risk. It's no big deal.
Who said that? Is that Brandon?
I think it was Brandon, and but both of you guys were actually sort of, ping ponging that one back and forth.
Is it ever for nothing? Is it ever like not for anything, Brandon?
Yeah.
No, there's always a purpose for it. There's always a purpose for it.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that's the least presentable has the most important purpose to it. I mean, some of the most important art I've ever done is stuff that only a couple people that I love are going to see. You know, some of the best art, like I said, like drawing with my daughter, drawing stupid drawings with my daughter. You know, that's as valuable to me as anything I'm ever going to publish and make money for. So, you know, there's always a purpose to it. If you're doing it out of love, that's the only justification, you know, you ever need. Becomes less meaningful sometimes the more money you get for doing it.
Oh,
Who is it that said, was it like Nietzsche that said, like, we have to assume that Sisyphus like loves pushing the rock up the hill?
I remember that. Yeah. I mean,
Something like that.
yeah.
Unless he's getting paid to do it, then, you know, he's he's in hell.
Oh, I love the way your brain works, Brandon. Yeah, I also think about like how throwaway things can turn into something when you least expect it. So I'll point people at an interview that I did on the Stuff Said podcast with Greg Schiegel, friend of the show. And this was years ago. This is like back in 2014 when I was on a show. But I told the story of how Jared, the abominable snowman in the front, came to be. And it was, and I mean, the front I published in what, 2006, 2007. But this goes back to like 1997 when I was deadlining for Antarctic Press. I was working a full-time job and I was pulling all these late nighters and I was at the desk and I'm like all hunched over and drawing was a lot harder for me back then. So like the pages took like 4 times as long. And Anne did this drawing. I'll pull it up. And did this stupid little crud doodle where it's this monster saying, "Yo, dudes, guess what? I saw a naked lady once." And she slipped it. She slipped it on the table while like underneath my arm while I was working. And this is on Greg's site. I sent him a scan of it so he could include it in his show notes. But it was just such an adorable, silly, throwaway little thing that just made me laugh so much that like I was like, I'm gonna make this into a character. And you can see it doesn't look anything like what Jared wound up becoming, but like Jared in the comic says repeatedly, "Yo, dudes, guess what?" Like that's the way he introduces himself in the room. And so like yes, this was for nothing. This was just like a cheerful little doodle to like perk me up when I was going through a hard time. But it turned into something that, you know, I still get mileage out of today, right?
Yeah. So did that, okay, I mean that's a perfect example where if you give yourself permission to go to a different place that you are generating and not really concerned about a transactional thing where I'm creating this and I'm getting paid for this. There's this is the input and I get output at the end of it, whatever. But then again, you know, it seems like output can be incidental sometimes. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so what about? Do you think any ideas came out of this challenge?
Oh my gosh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing that I found over and over again, that the stuff that I just do as like a stupid flight of fancy always ends up being the stuff that resonates most with people. I mean, I had this little series a while back where I've just been like, I've had this dumb little like Star Trek concept in my head for years. And I'm like, I'm going to draw some images from this thing. And it's like, I got way more interest from that than anything else I was doing. And then this stupid thing I'm doing with my friend Brady, where we're doing these like Dune Muppets things. I did this sandworm with animal's face on it, and it's like I've gotten like more likes from this than like anything I've ever done on Instagram.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
And it was just like this stupid like flight of fancy. I wasn't sitting down thinking, but I just find for myself, when I do stuff from the heart and I'm just doing stuff out of love and for the fun of it, that's the stuff that connects. When I try to think about it too much, it's just like, who cares?
The brain gets in the way.
And not all the time. Some of the stuff I do that I'm having fun with, no one cares about except for me. But yeah, that's one of my Star Trek ones.
Yeah, I've been watching like this is like a reimagining of Star Trek, like farther down after TNG. Is that right?
Yeah, like 500 years after. So
you had
like when the Federation is gone and it's just like chaos and
Yeah, that's been really. I remember you did a really interesting take on Klingons. I was trying to dig back and define
That's
that.
going to be one of the early. There it
Oh,
is.
here we go. Yeah, this looks so great.
Like the foppish Klingon. That was the
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, so Rob,
So
is it ever not for anything with you?
yeah, I mean that's of course not. It's I mean it's just a matter of like how uptight am I, and so chances are if I'm making this with a greater sense of exploration and freedom with a little less specificity, then I tend to have more fun, and some things come out. Like, and for me, the example was realizing that I might have a story to tell with a drawing from 2015, the Two Pizza Team, right, where I was like, oh, geez, now I have this. Yeah, I've got some concepts, and I've been working on a story in the as a side project, but and that's just from a single drawing a few years back. But then ever since, especially in I think I've done a lot more public in with Sketchbook Summer, where I've got a bunch of drawings that are Two Pizza Team related in behind the scenes sketches. But that just came from whim of like, this is funny. Like I'm making fun of this it's I think it's a Jeff Bezos quote, and
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
yeah, it's something about, and it's overall it's an interesting concept.
Okay, I've heard. I think I know. I'm familiar with this. Is
Yeah,
it where a
so
team shouldn't be bigger than it can share two pizzas? Is that the thing, or something like
exactly,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Except when there's a vegetarian and it just messes everything up. So um anyway, so the quote is, it gets shared around where you can have more flexible teams by just not growing them so much, and you have better collaboration, more a chance for better collaboration if you keep it to that, and or maybe they're just two pizzas that are martial art at solving problems. So yeah, I mean, so it's always for something, and honestly, the stuff that doesn't get the giggle and whatnot, that's for the either just the expressing and the love of drawing, and or an idea to someone I care about, and or it's just practice, and that adds up too. So it's always for something.
So, okay, I think we did a episode. We walked around a topic. Brandon, is this going to happen again? The Sketchbook Summer?
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Okay.
Absolutely. Next year, I think it's going to be kind of a every July thing. So, but it's nice because we're so like non-specific about it. It's Sketchbook Summer, so we can really like move that around and be a little bit fast and loose with our definition of it if we get lazy or whatever. Or like I decide I want to go on vacation in July. Who knows? Or I get
Oh yeah. I noticed that Matthew went on vacation like right afterwards, right?
yeah. It was a lot of work.
Well, we appreciate you guys developing this idea and promoting
Yeah,
it because it was a lot of fun to engage with.
yeah.
Oh,
Thanks for
thank you.
putting that out there. It was
Yeah, it
really cool.
was great having you guys participate.
And everybody, if you enjoyed this episode, another thing you should do today, right now, is go to thegreenmonk.com, no dashes. That takes you to the tapas.io site.
Capistata, yeah.
And then youtube.com/Brandon Dayton is where you can find Brandon's essays. And I can't recommend either of those things enough. They're nourishing. It's nourishing art.
Thank you.
Okay, the show is recorded every week, every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's streamed live on YouTube and collected as a podcast at patreon.com/leanintoart. Thank you, Brandon, once again. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Jersey.
And until next time, I have been Jersey Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jersey Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger on Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
All right, I'm going to kill the stream. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out.